In the heart of a forgotten industrial district, under the veil of a moonless night, lay a warehouse, abandoned and whispered about in the hushed tones of the nearby town. Its vast, shadow-clad halls were rumored to be cursed, a place where the air turned cold and the brave dared not tread. Eddie, a seasoned thief with more courage than sense, scoffed at such tales, driven by the lure of forgotten treasures rumored to be hidden within. He found himself standing before the warehouse's gaping entrance, armed with nothing but a flashlight and a greedy heart. The door creaked ominously as he pushed it open, the sound echoing through the vast, empty spaces within. His flashlight pierced the darkness, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to dance and twist around him. The air was thick with dust and a palpable sense of unease that made his skin crawl. As he ventured deeper, the silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of his own footsteps and the occasional distant drip of water. It was in the heart of this silence that he first heard it, a soft, scuttling sound, like something moving in the shadows just beyond the reach of his light. Eddie paused, his heart racing. He told himself it was just a rat, or perhaps the wind playing tricks. But as he moved forward, the sound grew louder, closer, until it was clear it was neither rat nor wind. Something was in the warehouse with him, something that moved with deliberate, stalking grace. In a room filled with old, rusted machinery, he found the source of the rumors, a safe. Its once gleaming surface now dulled by time. As he knelt to inspect it, the flashlight flickered, casting his shadow against the wall. But it was not alone. Another shadow loomed beside it, tall and distorted, with limbs too long to be human. Eddie spun around, but there was nothing there. Nothing but the oppressive darkness and the echoing of his own panicked breath. He turned back to the safe, determined to dismiss his fears as mere figments of his imagination. But then, the air grew colder, a chill that seeped into his bones. The flashlight flickered again, this time going out completely, plunging him into darkness. He fumbled for it, his fingers trembling, but before he could find it, he felt a breath against his neck, cold and damp, smelling of decay. In that moment, Eddie knew he was not alone. Something lurked in the shadows with him, something ancient and malevolent, awakened by his intrusion. And as his scream echoed through the empty halls, it was met with another sound, a low, guttural chuckle that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The warehouse remained silent after that night. Eddie was never seen again, and the rumors about the place grew darker, more sinister. They said the warehouse was cursed, haunted by a shadowy figure that preyed on the unwary, a thief in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. And so, the story ends with the warehouse standing silent and watchful, its secrets and its shadows undisturbed, waiting for the next daring soul to venture within its cursed walls. As the days turned into weeks, the disappearance of Eddie became the talk of the town, fueling the sinister legends surrounding the warehouse. The authorities searched the dilapidated structure, but found nothing except for Eddie's abandoned flashlight, its light forever extinguished near the rusted safe. No trace of him was ever uncovered, and the case grew cold, shrouded in mystery and fear. The warehouse, now more feared than ever, stood as a silent sentinel, its secrets guarded by the shadows. But the story doesn't end there. Driven by a mix of grief and determination, Mia, Eddie's younger sister, decided to uncover the truth behind her brother's vanishing. Unlike Eddie, Mia was cautious and methodical, her mind sharp and her spirit unbreakable. Armed with more than just a flashlight, she entered the warehouse one fateful evening. Her steps silent amidst the creaking echoes of the forsaken halls. She had brought with her a digital recorder, hoping to capture any sounds or whispers that might unravel the mystery. As Mia ventured deeper into the warehouse, the air grew colder, and a dense fog seemed to rise from the very ground, swirling around her feet. Her heart pounded in her chest, not just from fear, but from a burning need for answers. In the heart of the warehouse, where Eddie had last been seen, Mia felt an overwhelming presence, as if the shadows themselves were watching her, breathing down her neck. She pressed on, her recorder capturing the eerie silence and her own steady breaths. Then, without warning, the silence was shattered by a soft, mocking laughter, echoing from the dark corners of the room. Mia spun around, her light cutting through the darkness, but there was nothing there. The laughter grew louder, more menacing, surrounding her, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Mia's heart raced as she realized she was not alone. Whispered voices began to fill the room, speaking in tongues too ancient to understand. The temperature dropped, the cold biting at her skin, and the fog thickened, obscuring her vision. In the midst of the chaos, the digital recorder picked up something else, a voice, clear and distinct among the cacophony. It was Eddie's voice, calling out to her, pleading for help. Mia's blood ran cold as she followed the sound, her brother's voice leading her deeper into the labyrinth of shadows. As she reached the heart of the warehouse, the fog cleared, revealing a scene that would haunt her forever. There, in the center of the room, stood the rusted safe, its door now wide open, and from within its dark maw, a blinding light poured forth, casting long, twisted shadows that writhed and twisted like living things. But before Mia could approach, the ground beneath her trembled, and the walls began to groan, as if the very warehouse itself was alive and angry. The light from the safe grew brighter, more intense, until it was all she could see. And then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The light vanished, the voices silenced, and the darkness returned, more oppressive than before. Mia stood alone in the silence, her heart pounding, the digital recorder her only witness to the madness. But as she turned to leave, a new sound caught her attention, a soft, dragging step coming from the shadows. Something was approaching, something large and unseen, its presence filling the room with dread. Mia realized then that the warehouse harbored secrets far darker and more dangerous than mere tales of a haunted place. It was a gateway, a threshold to something ancient and malevolent, and she had unwittingly crossed it. As the unseen entity drew closer, its breath foul and ragged, Mia understood the true horror of the warehouse. It was was not just a place of shadows and whispers. It was a realm of darkness, where the boundary between the living and the dead, the seen and the unseen, was perilously thin. And so, with the digital recorder still in hand, capturing every moment of terror, Mia prepared to face the unknown. Her fate intertwined with the dark heart of the warehouse. The story left hanging in the balance. A chilling reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be closed. As Mia stood frozen, the dragging steps grew louder, closer, until they were almost upon her. The air thickened, charged with an electric fear that made it hard to breathe. Her mind raced, desperately searching for a way out. But she was drawn to the darkness, as if it had a will of its own, compelling her to stay. The shadows around her began to move, coalescing into forms that were human in shape, but grotesque in their contortions. As if the very essence of the warehouse's tortured past had taken physical form, these shadow beings circled around her, their movements erratic, their whispers a cacophony of despair that clawed at her sanity. In the midst of this nightmare, the digital recorder captured a symphony of horrors. The dragging steps, the whispers of the shadow beings, and a new sound, a low, mournful wail that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. It was as if the warehouse was alive, lamenting its own cursed existence. Mia, her resolve fortified by the need to find her brother and uncover the truth, stepped forward. The shadow beings recoiled, as if her determination was anathema to them. She moved towards the source of the wail, her path lit only by the dim glow of her fading flashlight. As she navigated through the maze of shadows, the ground beneath her began to shift, the solid concrete giving way to something soft and unsteady, like the ground of a grave. With each step, her feet sank deeper, the earth clinging to her, trying to drag her down. Ignoring the primal fear screaming inside her, Mia pressed on until she reached the heart of the warehouse, where the wail was loudest, the air coldest, and the darkness most complete. There, she found an old, decrepit elevator shaft, its doors pried open, revealing a gaping maw that led down into the bowels of the earth. The wail emanated from deep within the shaft, a siren call that beckoned her closer. Peering over the edge, Mia could see a faint light flickering far below, like the flame of a candle in a vast darkness. It was an impossible sight, the elevator long since broken, the shaft supposedly leading only to a sealed basement. Compelled by a force she couldn't understand, Mia made a decision that would change her fate forever. She stepped into the void, the darkness enveloping her as she descended into the unknown. The digital recorder, her only link to the world she left behind. As she fell, the air around her grew colder, the wail louder, and the flickering light brighter. Time seemed to stretch and bend, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurring until they were indistinguishable. Finally, her feet touched solid ground, and she found herself in an underground chamber, vast and ancient, lit by the eerie glow of phosphorescent fungi that clung to the walls. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, and upon it, a book bound in human skin. its pages filled with indecipherable runes that pulsed with a malevolent light. The wail had ceased, replaced by a deafening silence that pressed in on her from all sides. Mia knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that this was the heart of the warehouse's darkness, the source of its cursed existence. As she approached the altar, the shadows began to stir, forming into shapes both familiar and alien, a pantheon of horrors that watched her with eyes that were not eyes. The air vibrated with a power that was ancient and terrible, a force that had lain dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Mia stood before the altar, the digital recorder capturing the palpable sense of dread that filled the chamber. She realized then that she was part of something much larger, much older than she had ever imagined. The story of the warehouse, of her brother's disappearance, was just the beginning, and as she reached out to touch the book, the chamber shook with a thunderous roar, the shadows swirling around her in a frenzy of dark energy. The boundary between worlds thinned, the veil lifting to reveal glimpses of other realms, other horrors that lay just beyond human comprehension. The story was far from over. Mia's journey into the darkness had only just begun, and the path ahead was fraught with terrors beyond imagining. The fate of her brother and the secrets of the warehouse intertwined in a narrative that was still unfolding, its conclusion lost in the shadows, waiting to be discovered. As Mia's fingers brushed against the ancient tome, a surge of eldritch energy coursed through the chamber, the air crackling with power. The runes on the book's cover glowed with an unholy light, illuminating her face with a spectral pallor. The shadows recoiled as if in pain, their forms twisting in agony before reforming, more menacing than before. The ground beneath her trembled, the rumble deep and resonant, as if the very earth was protesting her actions. From the dark corners of the chamber, the sound of stone grinding against stone echoed, revealing hidden passageways that snaked away into darkness, their depths unknown and inviting. Mia, her resolve unwavering, opened the book. The pages fluttered as if caught in a breeze, stopping on a spread that pulsed with a dark energy. The runes, indecipherable to the human eye, seemed to shift and change, forming images that told a story of ancient rituals, of gateways to other worlds, and of a creature, ancient and malevolent, bound by the book's power. The chamber's air grew thick, almost tangible, filled with whispers that seemed to emanate from the book itself. They spoke in a language not meant for human ears, a cacophony of voices that promised knowledge and power at a terrible price. Mia felt a presence behind her, something vast and ancient, its gaze heavy upon her. She dared not turn, for she knew that to look upon such a creature would be to gaze into the abyss itself. Its breath was a fetid wind, carrying the scent of decay and the promise of oblivion. The digital recorder, placed carefully on the altar, captured every sound, every whisper, its red recording light a solitary beacon in the oppressive darkness. Mia spoke, her voice steady despite the fear that clawed at her heart, narrating her discoveries, her theories, and her fears for her brother. She knew that if she did not make it back, This recording would be her only legacy, a solitary clue in the darkness. As she spoke, the creature behind her stirred, its movements causing the air to shift, the shadows to dance. It was ancient, bound to the warehouse and the book, a guardian of the threshold between worlds. Its voice, when it finally spoke, was the sound of graveyards at midnight, of the wind through dead leaves. It spoke of the book, of how it was a key, a lock, and a doorway all at once. It told of other realms, of beings that lurked in the spaces between, waiting for the gates to open. And it spoke of a ritual, one that could open these gates, but at a cost too terrible to comprehend. Mia listened, her mind racing, piecing together the fragments of the story. The warehouse was not just a building. It was a nexus, a point where the boundaries of reality were thin, where the walls between worlds could be breached. The creature's words were a seduction, promising the answer she sought, the power to find her brother and bring him home. But beneath the honeyed words lay a trap, a binding that would make her a servant to the book, to the creature, and to the dark forces that sought entry into our world. As the creature spoke, the shadows grew, enveloping the chamber, obscuring the exits, trapping Mia in darkness. The book on the altar pulsed with a life of its own, its pages turning as if blown by an unseen wind, stopping on a page that depicted a ritual, ancient and forbidden. The chamber trembled once more, a sign that the ritual was about to begin, a ritual that would open the gates and unleash horrors untold upon the world. Mia stood at the precipice, the fate of her brother, and perhaps the world, resting in her hands. And as the shadows closed in, the digital recorder capturing the crescendo of whispers, the rumble of the earth, and the creature's final chilling words, the story hung in the balance. A tale of darkness and light, of sacrifice and salvation, yet to be continued. In the oppressive darkness, with the creature's words echoing like a death knell, Mia's resolve was tested as never before. The ritual, depicted on the ancient tome's pages, called for a guardian to willingly step into the abyss, to become the key that would unlock the gates between worlds. The cost was clear: a soul, pure and unbroken, to serve as the anchor for the forces that lay beyond. Mia understood the gravity of her situation. To partake in the ritual could mean the loss of her very essence, but to refuse could mean never finding Eddie, never understanding the true nature of the warehouse's darkness. The creature, sensing her indecision, whispered promises of power and reunions, its voice a serpent's hiss in the pitch black. The chamber began to change as the ritual commenced, unseen forces manipulating the very fabric of reality. The ground beneath Mia's feet became a mosaic of shifting patterns, each one pulsing with an otherworldly energy. The air crackled with power, the shadows around her writhing in anticipation. From the depths of the chamber, figures began to emerge, their forms indistinct and shifting. They were the lost souls, bound to the creature and the warehouse, their whispers a chorus of despair. They encircled Mia, their presence a suffocating weight, a reminder of the fate that awaited her should she falter. digital recorder, now almost lost amidst the chaos, continued to capture the unfolding nightmare. Mia, her voice a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness, recounted the scene. Her words a testament to her courage and her fear. She spoke of the figures, of the shifting ground, and of the creature, its presence a palpable force that threatened to consume her. As the ritual reached its zenith, the book on the altar blazed with a blinding light, its pages turning faster and faster. A whirlwind of ancient knowledge and forbidden secrets. The symbols on the page began to lift into the air, forming a gateway, a swirling vortex that threatened to tear the very fabric of reality apart. Mia, standing at the edge of the abyss, knew that to step forward was to embrace a fate worse than death. But to step back was to abandon all hope of saving her brother, of ending the warehouse's curse. The creature's voice, now a deafening roar, urged her on, promising salvation and damnation in the same breath. The lost souls, their whispers now screams, reached out to Mia, their hands grasping, seeking to drag her into their ranks, to make her one of them. The air was thick with the stench of decay, the ground slick with the residue of their despair. And then, in the heart of the chaos, a voice cut through the darkness, a voice Mia knew all too well. It was Eddie, his voice a mix of fear and hope, calling out to her from the depths of the vortex. His words were a lifeline, a reminder of why she had ventured into this nightmare. Mia, her resolve hardened, made her choice. She stepped forward, not into the abyss, but towards the digital recorder, her voice clear and strong, a message for those who might follow, a warning and a plea. She spoke of the warehouse, of the creature, and of the book, of the price of knowledge and the cost of power. As her words filled the chamber, the ritual faltered, the shadows recoiling, the creature's voice silenced. The gateway began to close, the light dimming, the figures retreating back into the darkness from whence they came. But the story does not end here. The warehouse still stands, its secrets buried deep within its walls. The digital recorder, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded. Mia's fate and Eddie's remain intertwined with the darkness, their story a thread in the tapestry of the warehouse's cursed existence, waiting to be continued. As the ritual's energy waned and the shadows hesitated, Mia seized the moment of respite, her mind racing to devise a plan. The digital recorder, now her only link to the world beyond the warehouse, continued to capture her every word, her voice a mix of determination and dread. In the weakening glow of the ritual, the figures of the lost souls began to fade, their screams diminishing to pitiful whimpers. But the creature, its form now more defined in the dim light, remained. It towered over Mia, its shape constantly shifting, a mass of shadows and whispers, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Mia knew she could not defeat such a being through strength alone. Her only weapon was her wit and her will. She began to speak, not to the creature, but to the lost souls that hovered at the edge of the darkness. Her words were a lifeline, a beacon of hope in their eternal night. She spoke of freedom, of release from their bondage, urging them to break free from the creature's grasp. As her words filled the chamber, a change came over the lost souls. They began to coalesce, their forms becoming more distinct, more human. They turned towards the creature, their whispers now a unified voice, a chorus of defiance. The creature, sensing the shift in power, roared in fury, its form expanding, engulfing the room in darkness. The ground shook, and the walls of the chamber cracked, the very foundation of the warehouse threatened by the creature's wrath. Mia, standing firm in the face of the onslaught, continued to speak, her voice now a commanding force. She recited passages from the book, not the dark rituals it contained, but words of binding and banishment, words that had the power to contain the creature, to seal it away. The creature, realizing too late the danger, lashed out, a maelstrom of shadows and wind, aiming to silence Mia once and for all. But the lost souls, their forms now solid and bright, stood with her, their combined strength forming a barrier against the creature's fury. In the chaos, the digital recorder was swept away, landing near the edge of the ritual circle, its red light blinking steadily in the tumult. Mia's voice, now intertwined with the voices of the lost souls, rose above the roar of the creature, a litany of power and protection. The chamber's light grew brighter, the glow from the lost souls illuminating the darkness, shrinking the shadows. The creature, its form flickering and unstable, was forced back, its roars diminishing to pained howls. But just as victory seemed within reach, the ground beneath the ritual circle gave way, a massive fissure opening, a gaping maw that threatened to swallow Mia, the lost souls, and the creature whole. The warehouse, its structure compromised by the battle, groaned and creaked, dust and debris falling like rain. Mia, standing on the precipice, faced a new peril. The fissure, a dark abyss, pulsed with a sinister energy, a void that led to realms unknown and fears unimaginable. The creature, caught in the pull of the abyss, clawed desperately at the air, its form dissolving at the edges. And in that moment of chaos and danger, Mia made a fateful decision, one that would change the course of the battle and the story itself. The recorder continued to capture the sounds of the struggle, the voices, the roars, the crumbling of stone. But Mia's final action, her ultimate fate, remained unrecorded, lost in the noise and the fury. The story of the warehouse, of Mia and Eddie, of the creature and the lost souls, remains unfinished. A tale of darkness and light, of courage and sacrifice, hanging in the balance, waiting for a resolution that has yet to come. In the dwindling light of the closing gateway, Mia's last words on the recorder became a solemn echo, a beacon for any who dared to follow in her footsteps. The chamber, now partially reclaimed by darkness, held a tense silence, as if the very air awaited her next move. With Eddie's voice as her guide, Mia moved towards the weakening vortex, each step a defiance against the ancient evil that sought to claim her. The ground beneath her, a tapestry of eldritch runes, seemed to pulse in anger, its designs twisting in impossible geometries. As the gateway's light dimmed, shadows elongated, stretching towards Mia with clawed fingers. Their whispers now angry hisses. The creature, momentarily silenced, gathered its strength, its presence enveloping Mia in a shroud of despair. Its voice, when it spoke again, was a tempest of fury and fear, a cacophony that threatened to shatter her resolve. Within the chaos, a new sound emerged, a harmonic resonance that seemed to emanate from Mia herself. It was the sound of her determination, her unwillingness to succumb to the darkness. This resonance grew louder, more defined, becoming a melody of light that pushed back against the encroaching shadows. The digital recorder, lying on the ancient altar, captured every nuance of this battle of wills. Its red light, a solitary witness in the consuming darkness. The device, once a simple tool, had become an integral part of the narrative. Its recordings, a lifeline back to a world teetering on the brink of unknowable horrors. As Mia approached the faltering gateway, the figures of lost souls began to coalesce into more distinct forms, their features tormented but recognizable. Among them, she saw faces from the town's past, victims of the warehouse's curse. Each one a story of ambition turned to tragedy. Eddie's voice grew stronger, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. Yet, as Mia drew closer, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The voice she followed might not be her brother's, but something far more sinister, mimicking his voice to lure her deeper into the trap. The creature, sensing Mia's hesitation, redoubled its efforts, the air vibrating with its malevolence. The shadows, now frenzied, converged on her, their forms a maelstrom of darkness. But within this darkness, a singular, piercing light emerged from Mia herself, radiating from the core of her being. This light, born of her unwavering spirit, formed a barrier around her, a shield against the darkness. The runes on the ground recoiled as if burned, and the lost souls paused, their tormented expressions softening in the light's embrace. Mia, standing at the threshold of the unknown, faced a choice that would define not only her fate, but the fate of all who had been touched by the warehouse's darkness. The gateway, now barely a flicker, held the promise of answers, but also the peril of oblivion. The story, captured in the digital recorder's unblinking eye, hung in a delicate balance, a tale of courage against insurmountable darkness, of a quest for truth that transcended the boundaries of reality. Mia's next steps, shrouded in uncertainty, promised to lead the narrative into even darker, uncharted territories. The conclusion, a whispered promise in the shadows, ever elusive, always just out of reach. In the dwindling light of the closing gateway, Mia's final words into the recorder became a fervent incantation, a plea for forgiveness and a warning to those who might dare to tread this cursed ground in the future. As the vortex began to collapse, the warehouse itself seemed to shudder, an ancient groan echoing through its forsaken halls, as if the very building was protesting the closure of the portal it had harbored for so long. The shadows, once aggressive and foreboding, now appeared to hesitate, their forms flickering uncertainly as the ritual's power waned. The lost souls, momentarily emboldened by Mia's defiance, seemed to recoil, their screams fading into whimpers, their forms dissolving into the creeping fog that began to fill the chamber once more. Yet, as the immediate threat of the gateway's opening receded, a deeper, more sinister realization dawned on Mia. The creature, though silenced, was not defeated. It lurked in the shadows, biding its time. Its presence, a malignant tumor within the warehouse's walls. The book, too, remained on the altar, its pages now still, but pulsing with a latent menace, a promise of horrors yet to come. Mia understood that her actions had merely postponed the inevitable. The warehouse was a node in a network of dark energies, a crossroads for forces beyond human comprehension. Her brother's voice, a beacon in the darkness, had guided her this far. But now it was silent, leaving her alone in the echoing vastness of the chamber. As she made her way back through the shifting labyrinth of the warehouse, the digital recorder in hand, she could not shake the feeling of being watched. The whispers of the lost souls followed her, a litany of warnings and lamentations that seemed to seep from the very walls. Emerging into the night, the warehouse behind her, a silent monolith against the starless sky, Mia was faced with a new dilemma. The digital recorder contained evidence of unimaginable horrors, of a reality teetering on the edge of madness. To reveal its contents to the world could invite chaos. Yet to keep it hidden would be to shirk the responsibility that fate had thrust upon her. As she pondered her next move, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble once more. A subtle reminder that the forces she had tampered with were not bound by the walls of the warehouse. The night air, once a relief from the stifling atmosphere within, now seemed to press against her, heavy with unspoken threats. In the distance, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow detaching itself from the darkness. Its form too fluid, too deliberate to be a trick of the light. Mia realized then that the warehouse's influence extended far beyond its physical boundaries, its tendrils reaching into the very fabric of the town, perhaps even beyond. The story, it seemed, was far from over. The warehouse stood as a sentinel, a gateway to darkness that had been momentarily barred, but not sealed. Mia, with the digital recorder as her only ally, stood on the threshold of a deeper mystery. A battle not just for her brother's soul, but for the very essence of reality itself. And as the shadow approached, its form becoming clearer with each step, the line between ally and enemy, between savior and destroyer, blurred. Mia's journey into the heart of darkness was just beginning. The recorder, a testament to the thin veil that separates our world from the abyss. The story hanging in the balance, a thread in the cosmic tapestry, waiting to be woven further into the fabric of the unknown. In the waning moments of the ritual, as the gateway began to close and the shadows receded, Mia's final words resonated through the chamber, a testament to her courage and determination. The digital recorder, its red light dimming, captured every nuance of her voice, every tremor of fear, and every ounce of resolve. With Eddie's voice as her beacon, Mia navigated through the collapsing vortex, the chaos of the ritual unwinding around her. The figures, once menacing and relentless, now appeared diminished, their forms dissolving into the ether, their whispers fading into silence. As the last of the ancient symbols returned to the pages of the book, the blinding light receded, revealing a transformed chamber. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a soft, ethereal glow that emanated from no discernible source. The air, once thick with the scent of decay, now felt purer, almost sacred. In the heart of the chamber, where the altar once stood, lay the digital recorder, its red light extinguished beside the ancient tome, now closed, its cover no longer pulsing with malevolent energy, and beside it, a figure lay motionless eddy, his body seemingly unharmed, but his face etched with the trials of his ordeal. Mia rushed to her brother's side, her emotions a tumultuous storm of relief, joy, and lingering fear. As she embraced him, Eddie stirred, his eyes fluttering open, meeting Mia's with a mix of confusion and recognition. The chamber began to shake, not with the violence of the ritual, but with the gentle rumble of something awakening. The ground beneath them shifted, revealing a pathway that led upwards, towards the light of the surface. It was as if the warehouse itself was granting them passage, acknowledging their victory, their sacrifice. Hand in hand, Mia and Eddie followed the path, their steps light, their spirits lifted by the promise of escape, of survival. As they emerged from the depths of the warehouse, the first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and pink. A new day dawning, full of hope and possibilities. Behind them, the warehouse stood silent, its secrets buried once more, its darkness held at bay. The digital recorder, now silent, held within it the story of their ordeal, a testament to their courage and the power of sibling bonds. As they walked away from the warehouse, the sun rising behind them, Mia and Eddie knew their lives were forever changed. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the scars of their experience would remain, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown. The story of the warehouse, of Mia and Eddie's harrowing journey, would live on, a cautionary tale of curiosity, of the thin line between bravery and folly, and of the unbreakable bonds that define us. And as the warehouse faded into the distance, swallowed by the light of day, it stood as a silent sentinel, waiting for the next soul brave enough to uncover its secrets. And so, the story finds its end, not in darkness, but in the light of a new dawn, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope.